Here we are. Are you ready for a conversation? For your Sunday conversation? We are in the middle of our series on presence and potential, a book by Martha Creek. Raise your hand if you were here last Sunday for Martha Creek. Amazing, right? Raise your hand if you recommend anyone go back and look at last week's YouTube if you weren't here. And just give a shout out if you went to the workshop. I got really good feedback from the workshop. People said, I think some people had never gone before, right, to a Martha Creek workshop. And if you've never gone to a Martha Creek workshop, you're ready to have your socks blown off. So I am happy for you as a fellow spiritual traveler that you said yes to that invitation to support your life. If anyone's freezing, someone made us little shawls in the back. So there are little crocheted knitted shawls, and if anyone else knits and crochets, feel free to make one because my fingers are freezing. Anyone else a little chilly? Yeah. Yeah. Go get yourself a little snuggly. I think they're out there now. Watch, they're probably not out there on the day that I say they're out there. Martha Creek wrote in her book, "Drop the belief that I'm going to get what I want. When I notice I am in emotional hell hotel, remember, I've got the key. I can check out anytime I want." Do you always feel like you have a key? Does anyone have any anxiety ramping up or feelings ramping up? Anything, happening in November that you might be uncomfortable, that you might be processing some emotions? Yeah? Some things going on that might give you a little anxiety? Totally normal, right? But is it worth your well-being? Is it worth your body having the stress and anxiety of taking on what is beyond your control, right? We all have what we can control. We all have our activity, our action, what we can show up for in our lives and in this world that we live in. And then we all have sacred uses of our power of the mind. And has anyone been using theirs to worry? Right? Anyone been using theirs to generate concern or anxiety, right? Part of the human condition. Quite natural, but also optional. And we're here not to be ordinary, but we're here to be extraordinary, true? And so when we notice that, we notice it's part of the human condition to have that kind of tension. It's part of the human condition to care, right? And to have our hearts opened and for something to be important to us, to stand for something, to stand for love, to stand for healing, to stand for grace, to stand for all things good, all things God. But we can sometimes be consumed by these feelings, right? Michael Singer says, the author Michael Singer, we've done his book before, it's called Living Untethered, and he says, you suffer when the moment in front of you is not the way you want. And you rejoice when it matches your preferences. Does that resonate? We suffer when the moment in front of us is not the way we want, and we rejoice when it matches our preferences. So that what leads us to is part of the human condition. Charles Fillmore, one of Unity's co-founders, called it carnal mind. You can also call it the reptilian brain, right? Something is happening and I have to fight against it. Something is happening and I have to stop it. I have to be unhappy or upset if things aren't going the way I want them to go. If they're not matching my preferences, then I need to fight. I need to be against it, right? That's just part of the human condition. But Martha tells us in her book, in these chapters that we're studying this week, she says, there are keys and we have them. We're carrying them around all the time. So the keys for this week are using our imagination, are being what we are born to be, which is a being of resilience, and cultivating our willingness to learn from life. So the first one, using your imagination. How many of us recognize that we have a power? Charles Fillmore called out the 12 powers in all beings. And he said that kind of like the chakra centers, they kind of align with the chakra centers, but we have 12 powers. And one of those powers is the power of imagination, right? We use it every day, but it is a power, but we use it somewhat carelessly, don't we? I mean, think about what we put in our brains, right? What we put in our minds sits there and grows, right? A lot of times that's ads on television. My daughter came home the other day and she said, I said something about mold, or I must have been talking to someone about mold in the house, right? And she said, Mama, mold's not good. That's not good. We got to get that out of the house. And I said, how do you know anything about mold? And she said, there was an ad on YouTube. I'm like, what YouTube? At school. There was an ad on the YouTube at school. Now, aside from Erin McCabe coming out going like, that's just not appropriate. I was like, interesting. So my daughter at 6 years old is ruminating about mold in a house because what? It was given to her. It was delivered to her through the little device at school because someone didn't skip the ad, or actually they shouldn't even have ads, right? But that's life, right? We go around and there is stuff fed to us constantly, right? And we can ruminate about it. We can create from it, or we can use our power of imagination consciously. Martha says the most common use of imagination is worry, fear. I'm going to read a little bit from her book. Let's see. The most common use of imagination is worry, fear, scaring, or outright terrorizing ourselves by imagining a future we don't want. Anyone guilty of that this week, this month? Anyone go to bed with that on your mind? For real, right? Raise your hand if you have not done that or are not kind of planning to do that within the next few weeks. We tend to imagine bad things happening in the future. Cultivating imagination in the direction of what is possible is a helpful process for harnessing creativity. Working with a can-do attitude, imagining what positive outcomes are possible in any situation, carries a causative, creative energy. That is a unity basics, amen? But we still fall asleep to it. We still forget we're doing it. We don't have a little alarm on us that zaps us anytime. Maybe that'll be the new invention. A little ring you wear, right? A little ring that every time you use your creativity for good, it just spins. It just starts spinning so you can go, okay, wait, check that. Let me process that anxiety, process that fear, be present to it, but let me not cause it. Let me not be creative with it. Let me not be generative with it, right? I don't want to generate from there. I want to use it. I want to understand that it's a power. And just like my breath, right? We can use our breath. Who knows how to use your breath? Anyone do breath work, right? Some people just breathe, right? Or you're actually being breathed, right? You're being breathed every moment, right? You're not even conscious of doing it. But if you've ever had anxiety and gone to therapy, if you've ever done breath work or intentional practices, you know that the breath is actually incredible. It's a portal to things, right? Kundalini yoga is about using the breath. You can use the breath to create states of mind and states of body that are entirely different than what you might be experiencing if you just let yourself breathe. So the power of imagination is the same. We can use it. And a side note, we are 99.9% sure we're going to have a breath work experience here led by our Stephanie. We're going to have a breath work experience. I think it's the night before the election. Is that right, Mark? I think so. It's the night before the election. So that we can, if it's nice outside, we'll go out to the labyrinth. And this is a nonpartisan experience, right? We're not wearing our shirts or anything. We're all just going to go breathe together because I think the world needs us breathing consciously right now. So if you want to be a part of putting your energy into something positive, save that date and look forward to that announcement. But the most common use of imagination is fear, worry. But just like the breath, we can learn to use our imagination and cultivate creativity. Maria Montessori, many of you know her as the educator that created the Montessori learning method. She said, imagination does not become great until human beings, given the courage and the strength, use it to create. One of my favorite films, and I always forget the name of this film, but it pops out. But one of my favorite films is about wellness and new thought. And in this, they go through some of the research. And one of my favorite bodies of research is where they took two groups of people, a group that actually physically exercised and a group that sat on the couch and closed their eyes and thought about exercising. Which group do you want to be in? The couch, for sure. But they did that, and guess what they found? Both groups had positive impact on their body. right? Both groups had a positive effect from the art of exercising, one through physically acting it out, and the other through the imagination. So I tried it. I thought, well, that's great. I never have to go work out again. I'm just going to sit on my couch. And I started doing all sorts of things like, cartwheels back. I used to be able to do a back walkover. I don't even want to say used to because I promised myself I'd never stop doing them. But I have stopped doing them. Linda's not here, but she asked if I was going to do a cartwheel today. I am not. But I decided I'm going to just do that. I'm just going to exercise on the couch, right? Guess what? Still didn't have the determination to sit there and do it. But the power of our imagination is great. If we actually do it, if we actually take the time, it's not just a tool that's airy-fairy. It's not just a tool that's new thought, right? Athletes throughout time have been doing this, right? Athletes prep with this. They prep with the power of imagination. But do we use ours consciously, or do we let it use us? And can we wake up to the moment that our imagination is having its way with us and instead take a few basic steps? Because it is built in to use our imagination. We will be using it. You will and you do use this power. So step one, inquiry. Look at how you're using it. Engage in mindfulness. Doing daily meditations helps. It helps the brain slow down enough that it can go, oh, wow, I'm in a story. Right? I am in a creative story here. I am spinning around something. Then do an inventory. Look at it. Learn it. What's the pattern here? What am I looking at? And then decide what you want to generate and be pulled by a vision and begin to cultivate it. Give it color. Give it sound. Give it smell. Give it life. Breathe it in. Become as if it is true inside, within. And then watch for it to start to unfold in the external. The second step Martha gives us is hang in there. Hang in there. A lot of times we go through times in life where we don't know how to get through it, right? But one of the greatest parts of the human spirit is resilience. It's how we can show up and show up and show up again and again to each moment, even when it's hard, even when we don't like it. Right? Even when our minds or our beings are resistant, going, no, I don't want this to be happening, right? I mean, there's a lot of that going on these days, right? There's a lot of things that we wish weren't happening. So we can either stay in that place and wish something that's happening was not happening. Does that sound a little insane? Or we can put our energy where we want it. So who in this room and on the live stream, feel free to use the chat, who in here has lived through something unbearable and insurmountable? Full stop. I know a lot of your stories. You've lived through things that are unbearable, that seem insurmountable, and you're here. Martha reminds us to say, I can move through this. I can overcome this. And instead of, spending the time that's ordinary saying why or resisting or wishing something wasn't happening, turning it around and saying, how will I? How will I overcome this? How will I get through this? What is possible here? The human spirit is filled with the power to persevere. In Unity, we teach that God is within. God is not just a man in the sky, a man on a cloud orchestrating life, but it is a power that is within you. It is a light within you that, in fact, it is the wisdom, it is the intelligence, it is the imagination. These are your creative faculties. You are one with this life. You can just look at all of creation and just look at the galaxy and the stars and the planets and go, like, I am one with that. The same force and faculty that is putting all of that into motion is active and present in my life. I am a unique, unrepeatable expression of this light. Once we get into that state of mind, I am being breathed. I mean, I have organs that are designed so intricately that this whole body temple, this whole body being works on its own, right? Plants grow, trees grow. There are rivers and mountains, and water cleans itself when it goes through the Mother Earth. It's ridiculous how amazing life is. But we can get caught up in the power of the imagination of how awful we can make it, right? Because we can. But we can also lean into how magnificent it is and how incredibly supported we are. Two of my favorite teachers, one is Eckhart Tolle, who is an author and a teacher of stillness, and Robert Brummett, who is a teacher of mindfulness and teaches a lot of Unity ministers and Unity students and leads Vipassana meditations. Both of them have helped me with a practice that anytime something feels unbearable, we just go to this moment. Sometimes it's this day, sometimes it's this moment, sometimes it's this second, sometimes it's this breath. But anytime we're in something where the mind is taking us to I can't, or woe is me, or why, can we just ask ourselves, can I be in this moment? Just this one, just right here, right now. Can I breathe right here? Can I live through this right now? And most of the time, the answer is yes. Right now, I can be right here. I don't know that I can be there in 5 minutes. I don't know that I can be there in 2 days. I don't know that I can be there in a week. I don't know that I can be there in a month or a year. I don't know that I can handle this. But right now, right in this second, right in this moment, I can be okay with this moment. And then it's a practice of harnessing your creative power and drawing the mind back to right now. Because you know what the spiritual truth is? The spiritual truth is the only moment is right now, always and forever. It's only right now. Little Georgia was looking at pictures, and she kind of knows my heart. And she said something about these pictures of her when she was little. And she goes, "Don't you just miss that little girl?" And I was like, I do. And then we pointed to another one. Don't you just miss that little girl? I do. Look at those little cheeks. I just miss her little self. And I'm like, Aunt, she's right here. Isn't that cool? Because that's the same little girl. And you're going to keep changing because the outside keeps changing. But the one inside is always the same. Always in the present moment. It's you. It's me. It's now. One of my favorite friends from ministerial school, his name was Bob. He was kind of a country boy. And he would always say, whenever we got complicated with principle, right? Complicated with church, complicated with unity, he'd say, Erin, if it ain't simple, it ain't truth. Right, Mary? Mary was in class with us. He'd say, if it ain't simple, it ain't truth. It's simple. We complicate it. So if you're going through a moment, or if you're experiencing the human condition as unbearable, hang in there, that's all. Sometimes it's just making it through one day. Are you breathing? Can you be in this moment? I know the worst times I've had in life, it was moment by moment. I just had to pull myself only to this second. Could not move forward, could not think, well, what if, could not go into all these things. And those times that were my lowest times were the times that broke me, that ripped me apart, but I just realized I am this moment, I am the breath. I don't know what else I am, I don't know what else life's gonna be, I don't know, I don't have answers to the rest of that. But I am that I am, and I'm showing up. Right here and right now. And the greatest gift of my life is to recognize that those times, even though when they were happening, I've hated them, something shifted in me, and I will never go there again. Like I could never be broken in that way again. I could never be vulnerable in that way again. They each gave me a gift, not because they were necessarily good, but they gave me a gift because I was changed. Right? So each one taught me something. I can never be that concerned about money again. I can never be that lonely again. I'll never be that broken again. It brings you through the anxiety, through the fear, right? Because once you've stared at it and you've walked through it, you know that even on the other side, it's going to be me in the present moment and the breath. the I am. You won't waste your time, your energy, your money, your resources, your heart, fill in the blank, whatever it is. You won't waste it again. You won't lean into your imagination and use it to create in a way that doesn't serve your highest purpose, my highest purpose. The last point Martha brings us to is be willing to learn. She talks about, that we all have these times that are not fun, but they're part of life. Can we just accept that they're part of the whole? They're part of the experience of life. And can we recognize that and stop resisting them, right? Acceptance is often misunderstood as being enjoying something or wanting something, liking something in reality that's happening. But that's not really what it's about. Acceptance is about not resisting reality. It's about not taking our energy and our power and pushing against something. Because when we're pushing against something, what can we not do? If my hands are pushing against these walls that are caving in on me, what can't I do? I cannot reach for a higher vision. I cannot be pulled by a vision. And we're here to be extraordinary. We're here to be pulled by visions, pulled by light, pulled by love. So we can look at our lives and say, where am I unwilling to learn? Where am I unwilling to learn? Just look to the places you're suffering. Look to the places where we're resentful, where we're angry, where we're resisting what is. That's where we're not willing to learn. And that's when stuff gets hard. Like Martha said, it's all part of it. We don't have to like it, but it's included. Michael Singer in Living Untethered said, "What's in front of you is a very holy thing. All of it. Every single moment in front of you took billions of years with everything happening exactly like it did to manifest as it has. Science shows us that everything before us is worthy of great respect. You are being given a unique show that took billions of years to create. It's right in front of you, and you're complaining about it." So, instead of complaining about it, instead of fighting with it, can we set down the fight and pick it up tomorrow? There's a funny story about a man who wants to go on a diet, and he's like really gearing himself up for this. He's like, I'm going to get healthy. And so he writes himself a note. I will start my diet. The diet starts tomorrow. And he puts it on the bedside and he goes to bed. And then he wakes up the next day and he sees the note and he's like, oh, the diet starts tomorrow. That's great. I got one more day. I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. And so he goes to do his day normal. And then he goes to bed that night and he wakes up the next morning and he sees his reminder, his note. And he goes, great. The diet starts tomorrow. I got one more day. Can we flip that around? Can we flip that around, and rather than the diet starting tomorrow, can we say the fight starts tomorrow? Can we say the anxiety starts tomorrow? Today, I'm going to be present in this present moment. But tomorrow, I'll worry about that. Tomorrow, I'll fight with that. Tomorrow, I'll engage the human condition. But right here, right now, my time is God's. My time is for my source. My time is for my power, my creativity, my imagination. In yoga, we have a practice. We put down our mats, and before we go doing our practice, we say, Kenya, I just set everything else aside. If I want to pick it up when I'm done with my practice, I can pick it up. The fight will always be there tomorrow. Albert Einstein said, imagination is everything. It's the preview of life's coming attractions. Namaste.